Ghosts of Nagasaki, written by Ryan Marc, performed by Jason Hill. On August 9th, 1945, a plume of smoke and fire engulfed the city of Nagasaki. The hellfire and its subsequent radioactive plume claimed the lives of 39 to 80,000 people over the next 2 weeks. A large portion of these deaths resulted from the shock and the stupor of having just survived something believed impossible. As many as 5,000 people walked down to the shores of the Urakami River, wading into the water to alleviate the pain from the radiation burns on their skin. Many of these people, filled with complete shock, promptly drowned. On August 23rd, elements of the 2nd Marine Division entered the destroyed city to restore order from chaos. One of the men sent into the city was Lance Corporal Richard Murphy, my grandfather. Contrary to popular belief, the idea of a nuclear explosion creating an irradiated wasteland is, fortunately, mostly myth. Most of the radiation was gone from Nagasaki by the time my grandfather entered the city. The stuff that remained had mostly settled to the ground and could be washed off at the end of the day. My grandfather had survived numerous contacts with the enemy on Tinian, Saipan, Guadalcanal, and Okinawa. On Okinawa, they were told that the local populace may be hostile. If met with any aggression or even suspicion of aggression, they were to use deadly force. Once on a patrol, they encountered a hysterical woman running towards their element holding a box. The Zippo, or flamethrower, lit her up. She kept on running, all the while getting slower and slower until she fell onto her knees and dropped the now disintegrating box onto the ground. What was in the box was a newborn baby. You can trust me when I tell you that was not the worst thing my grandfather saw while he was at war. In Nagasaki, my grandfather's platoon was tasked to patrol along a section of the Urakami River. By this point in time, most of the bodies had been moved, but there were a few people still flash frozen in place. Alternatively, most of the bodies in the Urakami had already been washed downstream and presumably out into the ocean. The 3rd day of patrolling, my grandfather heard a, "Hey, Murph," and turned around to see a young Japanese man running towards him. Turns out it was a Japanese national who attended college with my grandfather. Upon graduating, he returned back to his hometown of Nagasaki. The two men shared a smoke, talked about their time at school, generally spoke of everything except the destruction and death that surrounded them. They parted ways with the young man offering to buy my grandfather a few beers if he could still find a bar standing. They shook hands and left. It was the day after this event where reality started to blur. Imagine my grandfather had been fighting an enemy. He had seen the destructive power of both sides in the conflict. He himself having been awarded for bravery under fire, as well as being credited for calling in a naval bombardment in which an estimated 23 enemy soldiers were killed. Yet, here he was, in a desolated wasteland, in his enemy's own country, being one of the first and last people who have ever in history experienced what a nuclear weapon could do to a city that just 2 weeks prior was alive and thriving, filled with men, women, and children, happy lives, far away, previously detached from the horrors of war. This would psychologically affect most, if not all, people. There wasn't a night patrol my grandfather was out with a small fire team, 6 men, patrolling through the deserted and fouled wasteland. They were walking along the shore of the Urakami River when the man on point exclaimed, "Hey, I think I see a body." He pointed in the direction of the river about 10 meters from shore, but then decided it was just his imagination. They continued their patrol. "Body. I'm sure this time." There was a hand sticking out of the surface of the water just a mere meter from the shore. They attempted to retrieve it, but it was a detached hand. If it was a full body, they would have done something about it, pulled it up on shore, logged its location, but it was just an arm, and they left it on the bank. They walked another 5 minutes, took a small break, lit up some Lucky Strikes, dicked around for a few minutes. Talked about girls, talked about home. Generally anything they could talk about to keep their minds off the devastation surrounding them. Eventually, "Damn, another one. Look out, about 20 meters. The hand bobbing along the surface. And then another. And another. And another. They started breaking water. 3, 10, then 20, then 50. They started moving towards the shore. The hands with the fingers moving, the wind blowing over the flat land with no buildings obstructing its howl. The men panicked. One let off a few rounds from his Garand into the water. They ran. They ran from the Urakami River and did not look back. I was the only person in my family that my grandfather told this story to. Just like I was the only person he told the story about the young girl with the newborn baby. He told me this story after he developed lung cancer. No, it wasn't the radiation, but a life of smoking. He told me this story and wondered out loud what was on the other side. He was wondering if he was going to be like one of those hands, crossing the Urakami River, grasping and groping for some meaning. He wondered if, when he reached the other side, if there would be someone there to take his hand and pull him up. He also wondered if he would see those he affected, those he had failed to pull up himself. War is cruelty. There is no use trying to reform it. The crueler it is, the sooner it will be over. William Tecumseh Sherman. This is Jason Hill. You've been listening to Ghosts of Nagasaki, written by Ryan Marc. Thanks for joining me this week. See you next time. And remember, when you lie alone in the dark, unable to close your ha just keep telling yourself, it's only a story. Ha 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 ha.